Hi guys, we are looking at the first question for your free response 1 assignment, and you can see it right here. So the first thing that they're asking you to do here is to draw a correctly labeled graph for two profit maximizing firms that are earning short run economic profits. One is a perfectly competitive firm and the other is a monopoly. So you're going to need to, on lined paper with a sharp pencil, or preferably, or at some point you're going to need to be able to do this in a blue or black pen. You're going to need to be able to draw these graphs in such a way that they look very much like this. Okay, so you can certainly use rulers. I would highly encourage you to use a ruler. Use your lines, and you want to draw a monopoly graph, and you want to draw a graph showing a firm and a firm, not the market, but the firm that is in perfect competition, and they're both earning short-term economic profit. Now let's review what we mean by economic profit. That means that the average total cost, which is your curve here on the monopoly, and your curve right here in the a perfect competitor, the average total cost needs to be below price. So here's your price in your perfect competitor, and here's your price here, average total cost down here, price here, average total cost down here in your perfect competition. Okay, so that's what these should look like. Now let's go through each of the requirements of your question. So they want you to, for each firm, make sure that you label the price, the quantity of output, and the area of economic profits. So what you're going to want to do is this. You're going to want to make sure that you've got your quantity, a monopoly. You can call that Q, or you can call it QM, is marked here. Your price is marked here. And now let's real quick review how we determine a price, because when you draw your monopoly, you're going to want to draw your downward sloping demand curve here, and your downward sloping but steeper, like double the slope, marginal revenue curve here. So when you're marking off your quantity, you want to find that point where your marginal cost curve right here, and that needs to be drawn, and it needs to start off declining, and at some point start to increase, and somewhere in here it's going to cross your marginal revenue curve. That's where you want to put your quantity, and your price is going to be going straight up from there to your demand. So your price here, your quantity here. Now, over in your perfect competition, your price is going to be the same as your demand, and also the same as your marginal revenue curve. They're all one horizontal curve, because if you remember, a perfect competitor is a price taker from the market. So their price is going to be set at a certain level. Your quantity is going to be where marginal cost equals price right here. Okay, so that's where you're going to set your quantity, where marginal cost equals price. Okay, let's go back to our question. So now we want to make sure that we are shading in the area of economic profits. Okay, so let's jump back. Here it's going to be that area between price and average total cost from the quantity over to zero. So this rectangle right here, okay? And what defines it? A price at the higher end, the top or the ceiling is going to be the price, and the floor is going to be average total cost, and it's going to be defined as the quantity 0 through whatever the quantity produced is right here. Okay, now over on your perfect competition, your area of economic profit is going to be is going to be defined basically the same or exactly the same. It's going to be bordered by a price for the ceiling. The floor is going to be average, where average total cost, what it is at the point where a marginal cost equals a price. So this point right here, and then from quantity 0 over to the quantity produced. Okay, so that's how you're going to shade in your areas of economic profit. Okay, what's next? We want to, in part B here, we want to, for each firm, explain the relationship between price and marginal revenue. Well, in a monopoly, price is always going to be above marginal revenue, because that's how you determine what your price is, by moving up from the point where a marginal revenue equals a marginal cost, up from that point, from your marginal revenue curve here to the demand curve here. So your price is always going to be above your marginal revenue. Sorry. And now, so you also want to explain here that in order for a monopoly to sell more units, they're going to have to lower the price, right? So they're on a downward sloping curve. So that's really the deeper reason, not just what you see on the graph, but the deeper reason why price is above a marginal revenue is because in order to sell more, and they're going to have to move down in their price. So as they come from here to here, say, their quantity would go up, but their price would go down. Now, in the perfect competition, marginal revenue always equals a price, because they are a price taker, and a price is going to be constant in the a market that is in perfect competition. Okay, now let's jump back over to part C. Okay, for each firm, explain how economic profits would likely change in the long run. Well, these are going to be different, because in a monopoly, because the way we define a monopoly is that there are barriers to entry into the market. This firm has a monopoly on the market. So it's going to be very hard for any other firm to come into whatever this market is. So you could probably make the assumption that in the long run, this monopoly will continue to enjoy positive economic profits. Now, the opposite is true for a firm that's in perfect competition, because what's going to happen over time is more firms are going to come into the market, because there's profit to be had here, and as more firms come into the market, that's going to drive the price down. Because if you think about what the actual market looks like, you're going to have a demand curve that is downward sloping. But if more firms come into the market, that is going to make the supply go up. So it's going to shift the supply, the downward sloping supply in the market to the right. And that shift in supply is going to push this price down to a point where we get to zero economic profit. So a perfect competitor in the long run is going to eventually earn zero economic profit. Okay. Now, if this firm was actually losing a profit, if their price was set below average total cost down here, then what would happen is firms would leave the market, shifting this supply curve to the left, which would push the price up to a point where all the firms still in the market would be earning zero economic profit. Okay, so that's that one. Let's see. Now, the last thing they're asking us to do here is label the area on each of these graphs that represents dead weight loss. Just for the monopoly. Okay, right. And because you're not going to have a dead weight loss in the perfect competitor, you're only going to have dead weight loss here, and that's going to be defined by this point right here, where you would call this where a marginal cost equals a demand, or where a marginal benefit, which is what we can also call the demand, equals a marginal cost. That is where they would be allocatively efficient if they were here. So this is the point of the triangle, and then it's defined by where this point where a marginal cost equals a demand, or you could say where a marginal cost equals a marginal benefit right here. And the bottom point of the triangle is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And the top point of the triangle is where price equals a demand right here on the demand curve. So this is your triangle of dead weight loss that you want to make sure you shade in a bit, if you can, differently from how you shaded in your profit, and then you want to make sure that you label it. Okay? Make sure that you're very clear in your labeling. So practice some with these. Now you're going to have, you're not limited in how much time you can take, but what I want you to do when you actually sit down to do your assignment, to actually write out and draw out your answers, I'm encouraging you to time it, because on the actual exam you're only going to have 50 minutes to do this. So you want to make sure that you are not running too far over a time, and you can draw these graphs fairly quickly, neatly, and efficiently. Okay, that I believe takes care of question number 1. Yeah. So when we come back on the next video, we'll look at question 2.